Brosque, let's talk about the squad. There's so much to talk about it, to be honest. When it dropped, I honestly couldn't believe some of the selections and some of the omissions. We'll start with the debutants, and aside from Alex Grant, of the new blood in the squad, who excites you the most?
Look, I think number one is Triantis. I think what he's been doing, we all saw how fantastic it was in the Mariners' charge to some championships there, and fantastic. But in taking his game to another level, going overseas, he's been fantastic, for Hibs there. And him coming back, I guess it's what sort of role, because we saw him as a defender, centre-half, playing very well against Caltech, and now he's played a more advanced number 6 role. So where Popper sees, I think he can use him, will be interesting.
I think basically Popper's plan is to have a look at him on training and decide, can he fill in, because they've got some problems to solve at the back with all the injuries. Can he do that when he's not played at centre-back for a while? Or is he better used in the midfield next to a Jackson Irvine? It's an interesting question. The other one, and we know Popper's not afraid to throw new blood straight into the starting lineup, is Ryan Teague. Another player he knows really well, signed him at Victory. It wouldn't surprise me, I don't think it'll happen, but it wouldn't surprise me if either him or Triantis does get a start against Indonesia at least.
Look, I think with Teague, he's one of those players that, plays in that unassuming role that no one really talks about, and he does it so well, and he's a quiet kid, which doesn't help his case either. But I think people who know football, and Popper clearly does, and Popper did speak about players being consistent and doing it at the top level for more than just a couple games. He's been doing that all year. He's almost their go-to and first picked in that midfield because of how consistent and how reliable he is. He likes to come deep and get the ball, gets them out of trouble so well, and gets a lot of their attack going. We focus on their attack and how good it is, but without him in that position, it doesn't tick, it doesn't work. So he does it fantastically. He's been someone who, again, unassumingly has sort of just grown into this role, and Popper's appreciated that. He's worked with him as well, so very excited to see what he can do.
Probably not a huge surprise that Popper goes with not only Alex Grant, a player he also knows well, but Kai Truen for the other centre-back role. They needed to bring in 2 centre-backs into this squad with the injuries, and he's gone for the more experienced, hardened types rather than, we've been speculating, is it time to get a Kikianis in the mix or something like that. So Popper's gone the sort of safer road, which personally I understand.
And I think we need, especially for these games. They're games where we will be controlling possession, we will be holding most of the ball, but we do need to be careful on the counter-attack, and we have been exposed at times throughout this campaign, and Popper's sort of brought in that change now, having 3 big lumps at the back, but guys who can not only win possession back easily, but then start the play again and make sure that they're always in good positions to not get exposed defensively. So again, I'm excited at the guys that he's brought in, given we've got some big outs in that defensive part of the field. But look, these guys can definitely do a job. Kai Rolls, Cameron Burgess, who hasn't been playing all that much, but I think for these games he won't have much to do. More than capable.
Yeah. So look, there's 10 A-League players all up in the squad. The one that I think surprised everyone is Daniel Arzani. I was there in the press conference or the roundtable discussion that Popper had with some journos in January. We got to ask. It was great. Probably the best period of time we've been able to spend with Popper since he took on the job and understand what he's about. And the big takeaway from that was the blast he gave Arzani. He said his training levels had been really poor and that he needs to basically lift if he wants to be part of the Socceroos in the future. What I still don't sort of get is that Arzani, since those comments, the only goal or assist he'd registered was the one he did on the weekend for Melbourne Victory. So you could argue he didn't respond, and yet he gets a recall. What do you think about this one?
Look, I see it as Popper's a very smart guy. I don't think he would have come out and blasted Arzani in the way he did without there being a reason behind it. And it was to get a spark, which we didn't really see, right? You mentioned there, he hasn't done a lot since coming back from that last camp. But I wonder if there's, in Popper, taking on, he's not just a coach, he's almost a father figure to a lot of these guys. He has to act that way. If he sat him down at the end of the camp and said, mate, listen, you've not done enough. I'm going to, when I get asked about it, tell people that you haven't done enough. You'll be here next camp, but I need to see a spark. I need to see that next time you come in camp, you're doing everything you can to justify wearing that jersey, right? Because that is what Popper's about. He's very big on passion and deserving a chance to be here. I wonder if there was an element of that before publicly coming out and saying what he did, to then bring him back and see because we've spoken about Arzani for years, and I think it's great that Popper's called it out, because there's long been that discussion around his attitude and sometimes just not doing enough. Now's his time. He's been given multiple opportunities. He's a fantastic player when he wants to be. So we'll see if Popper's able to get that spark out of him.
Well, if he played the way he did for Victory, then maybe he's onto something. I mean, Victory this past weekend, because terrific assist. You have something like, you have that Arzani coming off the bench in a game we're chasing, then no one's complaining about this selection.
He can be a game changer, exactly.
What about Nishan Velupillay, who was another one who people thought, just based on his form in the league, might have been lucky to be involved. There's players with better recent records than him, but he gets picked and then he comes on and scores a goal like that. So you look at it sometimes and it's like, Popper, you're genius. You know exactly what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Look, I think Velupillay seems like a real confidence player when I watch him play, and this spark and this weekend almost comes off the back of Popper giving him a chance, because I wonder if he thinks, given his form, that chance had gone away. You know, we picked him, he didn't really come back into any real form or can keep that consistent form. He's been coming in and out of the starting lineup. So, you know, Popper's shown a bit of faith in him, said, mate, you're back in the squad, and he's lifted. You know, so I think, look, it's been great for him, but you're right. Surprising when there's guys like Milanovic, Segicic, who've been, you know, scoring goals, playing well, and with some interesting celebrations to let Popper know that they're there as well.
We'll get to that in a sec. Look, Brandon Borrello, not a huge surprise that he's still in there. Caceres, your man, he's probably in the mix for a starting position. That's not a shock. What about Tilio? I'd probably put him in the same category as Arzani and Velupillay. Can be hot and cold. I wondered whether he had enough football for a consistent period under his belt to be back in the Socceroos. But again, we know when Marco Tilio is at his best, that's an addition for the Socceroos. Like, he can bring something that not many others can.
I think with a lot of these decisions, or a couple that he's made, you're looking at the games that we've got coming ahead, and they're crunch games, they're must-win games. So sometimes with kids that are in good form, such as a Segicic or a Milanovic, you don't know how they're going to perform or react when they put on a Socceroos jersey in a big game like this one, under this sort of pressure. So I think with guys like Tilio, potentially Arzani as well, he knows what he's going to get, and we need results. So he's probably gone to what he knows works, what he knows he can, guys that can deliver, and gone safe in this one.
What about the omissions, Brosque? Who was the one that surprised you the most that wasn't in there?
Look, I guess looking at it, I think given the form, someone like Noah Botic, I think when you look again at these games, we're going to control possession. We're going to have a lot of it. We're going to be in these areas, and you need genuine goal scorers. So, you know, Duke not being there, given his lack of minutes, Yengi, you know, whether he plays or not, I think in these games we need genuine guys who can put the ball in the back of the net, which is why as well, you know, Taggart's in the squad. So this guy's in incredible form. He's scoring for fun at the moment, all sorts of different goals. The runs that he makes inside the box to get himself away from defenders, I think is exactly what we're needing at the moment. Because with Craig Goodwin potentially, or whoever's out in those wide positions, the service, you know, someone like Mitch Duke, he works hard, he gives you a lot from that side of things, but we need goal scorers. And someone like him who's in the form he's in, I'm surprised he's not there.
The two for me are equal surprises, is him and Iran Kunda. I thought Iran Kunda deserved to be in, maybe ahead of an Arzani or whatever, based on what he's building in Switzerland. But it is interesting. Obviously, Taggart gets the nod over Botic, and Popper's probably again gone with experience and guys he knows, and as you know, he's got plenty of runs on the board with the Socceroos. Probably hasn't lit up the Socceroos, the national team level, like some people think he should have. Taggart, he's had opportunities, and obviously Botic has to wait for his.
Yeah, but I mean, in that situation there, I do think so. If someone like Taggart he picks in because Popper knows what he can do, he hasn't really scored goals as much as we would have liked for the Socceroos. So it's not like he's picking him based on what he can do for the Socceroos. So why not give a young kid like Botic a chance? If no one has really taken that number 9 position and made it their own because of the amount of goals they're scoring, you've got to keep looking for other options. I think Botic is someone who wouldn't be fazed. I think he's got that confidence about him to step into that jersey and say, this is me, I'm going to be your new number 9, Popper, pick me, I can score goals. So no one else has done it. So I think Popper, that's the one area of the field where he possibly couldn't have taken a bit more of a chance.
Yeah. Well, let's hear from Tony Popovic now, explaining why he chose not to select Noah Botic.
It's not really what he needs to do. I think it's the first year that he has consistent football, that he's backing up every week playing. He's scoring goals, so I think he's always been a natural goal scorer. We've seen that for the last 2 or 3 years. I think Johnny's doing a wonderful job with him, and he's getting stronger, and he has a wonderful mentor there that can hopefully take him to the next level, and he might be there in the future.
So this is where there's some inconsistencies in what Popper's talking about in terms of the squad, because Mitch Duke has barely played, doesn't get his spot because he hasn't played, but Kusini Yengi gets in, and he hasn't played either, but he gets in because he's a different type of striker. Noah Bodic needs to do it for longer, apparently. But Hayden Matthews got picked a few months ago off the back of not a particularly large body of football, even the professional level for Sydney FC, goes straight into a starting lineup. So on one hand, it's inconsistent. On the other hand, there has to be some level of, if you're choosing a squad and you choose one rule, it's playing or not playing, it's going to be pretty hard to build a cohesive unit in that way, don't you think, Brosque?
Yeah, and I think as a manager, you can't always say what you're actually feeling or give the genuine reasons as to why certain players aren't selected. You have to give that sort of spiel on he's not doing it for long enough, even though you've got players like Matthews, like you said, who'd only played 14, 15 games before getting selected. So that's all media talk, I think. I think there's reasons why he's looking at these squads in particular for the games coming ahead, what he wants, what type of style of player that he wants to do a job. And look, it is a good squad. I think, yes, we're always going to have this where we're talking about who should be in, who shouldn't be in, and who could have been picked. But at the end of the day, Popper is there for a reason. He's been trusted with guiding this team to the World Cup. It's a good enough squad to do that. So let's see how we go on Thursday.